by trip. Early morning, we were one of those.
Okay, everybody. Let's start the meeting. We call it to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What was that?
Okay.
You realize it.
So these are basically going to be 4 presentations by members of the administration, and little few ground rules. 1, let them finish the presentation before questions are asked. Let's try to make sure that every counselor gets to ask at least one question if they have one. If we don't answer your question in the course of the meeting, please make sure we have the question that you're concerned about so we can find the answer. And if you come up with a question later, send it into the administration and we'll try to get you an answer. What was the other thing? Melanie, can you think of what the other thing was I was suggesting?
We're trying to limit each section to about 15 minutes.
Yeah, about 15 or 20 minutes. And the other thing is, Councilor Woolman has made a specific request that really isn't on our agenda, but we're going to allow him 3 minutes to make a statement since we apparently didn't cover one of the projects that he's interested in. And with having said all that, let's start with Bonnie and John on the possibilities for a commercial or a commissary kitchen in the village.
Mr. Mayor, council members, how's it going?
Oh, and just make sure you're holding the microphone up close to your face or get down. It has to be like right up next to you.
You can pick it up. You can pick it up.
Yes, sir.
It should come out of the little stand there.
All right.
That way the mayor can hear you at home.
All right, can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go to it.
Yes, sir. So, we don't have a lot of time, so we'll do questions at the end. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of questions about this. I'd like to first introduce Juan Gonzalez, president of Corrales Growers Market, David Kavner. He's the head of operations and co-packer at Pinto, John Young, chef, everything else. Farmer, entrepreneur, what have you. Combined, we have a lot of years dealing with food, no matter whether it's coming out of the ground or going in a jar. So, the goals for the project, I put a packet in front of you guys. You guys can take a look at. Blueprints from old Mark at a facility Bill was so gracious to get started on for us. This is the community center right over here. Ideas for renovation to create a commissary kitchen. The goals for this is we're using the South Valley Economic Development Center as a template. Business incubator. I'm just going to kind of go through the outline as you guys have questions. We'll go through that. There'll be a certified food processing center. Our focuses are adding value to farmers, i.e., extra product that they could, they raise a lot of blue corn. They can grind that corn into this facility and make it a certified product. Lots of cucumbers, they could pickle it, what have you. I won't go too much detail on that, but there's a million different things we can do. No wasting food. Corrales has a regional food hub. Food hub facility and providing food storage and distribution and processing. It'll be a small facility, but with coordinated efforts with a manager of this facility, we're designing capabilities to have 3 different individuals in there processing food at any given time and not cross-contaminate. That detail is not on the blueprint yet, but I'll explain that later as we go on with you guys' approval. We want this to be a dual-use facility. Gives access to food producers to be able to have a certified product that they can put in our local stores or La Montanita, or any other big food chain. I use Heidi's Raspberries as a great success story from Corrales Farming and Food. We also want to focus on education, farm and food producing education, not only from the soil, but how to produce the right products, how to process that products, how to get to know one thing and how to get into that system as a business incubator. Food safety, we're going to get lots of classes on that because it's huge nowadays. You have to have a ServSafe certification, and we hope to be a ServSafe certificated, be able to give ServSafe certification at this facility. We're right next to the senior center. We're right next to several different schools in our area. We would love to be able to do seniors classes and youth classes. And as a startup business incubator. We met with Sarah Gerhardt, and she seems to think that we have a lot of great opportunities for funding for this project, whether they be grants or donations from our community or from other ways that we hustle the money, however we can. Because we are focusing on education, food security, agriculture, startup incubator, it gives us a broad range from USDA to federal grants and even local grants. We have a great opportunity in doing fundraisers. Our starting night is a huge success, one of the biggest success this year. I don't see why we can't do that if we have a food facility and doing fun dinners right here in our village center. I spoke to Jay Block. He has verbally committed $5,000 to $10,000 for startup, and more opportunities for more funding in July. Using Corrales Main Street as a fiscal agent, we can use the donation thing and go through them. Angela has been so kind as to suggest that as an opportunity. Things are very brown for right now. By talking to Facility Build, just a little quick walkthrough, we adjusted some plans, came up with some different ideas, and those prints are not permanent. There's a very first rough draft, but I think it came a long way just in a short meeting. So you will notice on your blueprint that we left almost 50% of that building as a meeting room. First off, we don't want to, in my opinion, it's a slightly underused facility or building, but it is still being used. The guys there, I have other meetings with other groups that I'm helping with Corrales, and we still need that meeting space. And in the commissary kitchen, we will still be utilizing that meeting space for educational purposes and doing the certification and what have you. You will notice that the exterior walls now extend out to that portal. That gives us extra square footage and capability to get a little bit more room and expand on that meeting room so we can be able to share that space with other village people that need to have a meeting. And our hopes is we'll utilize that meeting space as long as we need to until new development with other meeting spaces that we need to go through. And then it'd be great to be able to expand on this building that is a success. And there you go. Any questions? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for me.
Yeah, I can't see. I've got a big map on my screen.
Okay. My questions will be, because I'm quite familiar with the economic center that you're talking about in the South Valley. So I've been there and helped. In fact, my wife had a whole lot to do sitting on one of the first boards putting it together. So my question is going to revolve around that in just a second, especially with the business incubator part. And the fact that you've decided, or I mean, you're assuming that it's good to have somebody else run the program, right? if you could just very, very briefly talk about how you see somebody else running the commissary.
It will take a lot of organization to be able to organize with the different people that want to be able to use that facility. I think the management aspect of it would 90% of it be that.
Okay.
There's, you get a phone call, hey, I want to make pickles. You can't make pickles on Friday because we already have a person canning. They're going to be there from X amount and X amount. We can get you on Saturday. That kind of.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if I may just finish on the question.
Sure.
If you notice, I used the word commissary on this one specifically, and you didn't react too much to that one because I wasn't too sure on this one with what we're talking about here. Can it be used as a commissary for other people, or is it just for going to be the business incubator part? The reason I say that is there's no doubt I have some information about like food trucks and so forth. They are hurting for commissaries really, really bad. And they're willing to pay, but they just can't find them. But on the other hand, I don't know if this is a commissary or if it's just going to be a business incubator, because they have their business. It's more about where can they, do their cooking.
Well, there are a multitude of commissary kitchens in Albuquerque because the regulations in Albuquerque is you must have a commissary kitchen if you own a food truck. With the state of New Mexico that we register our food trucks here in the village because we're part of the state regulations, your food truck can be a commissary. That can be your commissary kitchen. If you're in Albuquerque, you must have a commissary kitchen. But you also get 90% of those food truck-centric commissary kitchens are basically there for them to park their food truck. So we don't have a big lot. I don't know whether or not we want to open that up. I think if they're doing business in the village, that's a good possibility. If they have a business license with the village, that would limit the amount of people that we might, you might get a flood of people wanting to come in. But I really think Bonnie's been working on this for like 20 years, and I think, in my opinion, and I know in Bonnie's opinion, I'm sure David's opinion, that we would want to keep it to small business stuff and not like a lot of food trucks.
Okay, I think that's it, except at the very end, you said a flood, so there's somewhere between a few and a flood. And whether or not some or none, it can't be in the middle, more or less, but are you anticipating the ability of food trucks located, shall we say, they're addressed in Corrales? Is that, in your opinion, a possibility, or maybe not, just for those people who want to can something and sell it elsewhere, say in a...
I don't really want to speak out of turn. That's not really something we've discussed at length in our small group or with the mayor or anybody else. That's been a conversation that there are a lot of different commissary kitchens or food trucks available in Albuquerque. And there's some in Rio Rancho as well. But it's not a conversation that we've extended past that.
Okay,
So I don't really want to give a solid answer.
gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Yes.
a couple questions. First of all, I'm sure this has been a dream of yours for a long time, and I want to congratulate you for moving forward on this. I am very familiar also with the South Valley Economic Development Center kitchen, and having owned a restaurant for many years, every time I go in there, I salivate because it's just an amazing place. And I know you mentioned Heidi's Raspberries, who had a startup in Espanola and finally found a home in South Valley, and it'd be nice to bring her back to Corrales. But I have three questions. First of all, on your cost estimates, you have no cost on here for an electrical upgrade. Is that going to be required? Do you know in that building?
There's a 200 amp service to it right now. I don't believe that we'll need it, but that would be a facility really question.
Okay. Secondly, will you be charging rent for farmers that come in and want to use the facility?
Yeah, I believe
Yes.
this facility has to be funded.
Right.
That will at least pay for itself. If you can do good, at least break even, that's great. But I would like to see it make
And the last question is, there is, as you mentioned, I think, the Indigenous Food Hub up on Corrales Road, connected with the Navajo Nation and all. And will they be incorporated into your thinking in terms of using the
We've
kitchen?
reached out to several different,
Don't have an answer.
people in the community, they are one of them, Food Line, CPD, we've, farmland preservation, League Network.
Because I think that would be a nice link, kind of completing the circle for them to be able to use that and stay within the community. So,
Exactly, in my personal opinion, this is a needed thing here.
yeah.
And I think that there's lots of different groups, even for-profit, nonprofit, I mean, so it has done great things, Flaggers has done great things. Because, even the bigger for-profit farms, another capability to really do that. And I know, it's been a real struggle as I'm new to the industry, and retail aspect of farming. It's a real dilemma to other farmers and our irrigation issues that we have, and having, Raj and Lee and try to figure things out this year has been kind of a struggle. But if you knew, Big Jim did sunflowers instead of chili, you knew that you could take those sunflowers and you could package them in the facility and put them in a month and eat that. That makes it, a little.
Yeah, I helped when the Indigenous Foods Hub got started. It was and it's really I think it'd be a really nice link to get that. So anyway, thank you and good luck.
Yes, Mel.
Yeah, thanks again for your presentation. You can obviously see you did so much work as far as design, as well as products that you would need, equipment that you would need. So someone would have to be in charge of the rental, scheduling, cleaning, the maintenance. What are you thinking as far as that goes? Would that be somebody like a volunteer, or would they get paid? Would it be somebody that is from the village?
I think we believe that we'll have to hire a person. Isn't that correct, Ron? Isn't that what we decided?
Yes, we anticipate having at least one full-time equivalent person to run it that will be an employee of the village.
Okay, and I know, somebody just said to me the other day about, they lived in California and they were near a commercial kitchen. And she says, are they gonna have this license and this license? I'm like, I don't know about all these things, but you guys are taking care of all of that, right? That will be all addressed.
Yeah.
So,
David's influence here is a huge part of this. That has a co-packer, not only do they have those products that are co-packs for a multitude of other outside entities.
So I would say the answer to your question, Mel, is yes. We will have whatever licensure is needed.
okay, thank you. One last question. When would you like the startup date, and how long do you think it would take to complete?
First of all, we don't have any money. Okay.
Money?
Secondly, we are anticipating asking for the legislature to provide us some funds. Melanie, correct me if I'm mistaken, but isn't this on our ICIP?
It is, yes.
So we're going to go to the legislature and ask for some funds. We can't use it and we can't do anything to it until after the election for sure. But we don't have any money at this time, but we'll go to the legislature and try to get some funding for it. And I would anticipate, just kind of off, the top of my head, it'd probably take about a year for it to be ready to be open. At least a year from now.
Okay, thank you.
That would have been my one point after the.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mayor, question?
Yes, sir.
I'm, and if this has already been described, I apologize that I missed it, but I'm a bit confused. What's the governance structure of this? So this is a municipal building on municipal land. Is this run as,
This is a commercial kitchen that is provided for the citizens of the village of Corrales initially. So they can add value to their products. They will pay rent. They will utilize the facilities, and they'll be supervised by a full-time employee or equivalent here in the village.
And the rent is.
We don't have a number yet.
Offers? No, not the quantity, but the rent is a payment to the village. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be my, based on what I know. Now, there may be other rules that we have to follow to do that, but that'll be worked out once we get to that point.
Yeah, I assume, Mr. Mayor, that it is a village facility, it's a village building, management of village employee, that all monies with village.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
this,
sir.
thank you, Mayor and councilors. A couple of things too. Also, how would you prevent, say, a grower from dominating the use of the building? Is that something that be done through the regulations or through the scheduling?
Well, I would assume that there would be some scheduling and you'd make sure that nobody is taking over the facility. They would have to pay rent and they would have to schedule their times. So everybody would have an opportunity to schedule. Somebody couldn't come in and schedule, the next 40 days and take up the time completely. But all those things will have to be worked out once we get to a point that we're starting to do those things. I mean, I don't want to, you can't set up a schedule now. We have no clue. But once we get to a point where we can start looking at scheduling, then we can set the rules.
Okay. Also, I know this is just a preliminary drawing, but I'm a little concerned about fire safety and egress and ingress out of the building. It looks like we only have about one or two single entry points. I'm just more concerned about making sure that inside the kitchen and the prep areas that there are access, to the outside that allow, just in case of a mistake or a fire or something like that. So just consider that, because when I'm looking at the drawing, I only see about two entry points of
Right, yeah, that was discussed with facility built, and like I said, this is a very preliminary, drawing, but, one of the fire safety is a huge difference between the meeting room and the kitchen has to be fire. And so to be able, so I wanted a window, and you guys said no, so, but it has to be a firewall, fire suppressor wall, and, the means of egress, would have to be, figured out by, facility building, I agree.
Yeah.
Stuart, let me say, this is a first drawing. This is the first run out of the chute. It was just done last, Thursday?
Yes.
We haven't really had much time to discuss it with the architect, nor have we gone through all the, let's say, gone down into the weeds as you're sort of talking about with all these entries and exits. The fire chief hasn't had an opportunity to look at it. I mean, this is just the first run out of the chute to give you an idea where we're trying to take this.
If we wanted to be able to give you some kind of visual, so that you can make your informed as possible at this point.
And it seems like to me that at certain times of the year, you're going to be a lot more busier, because as harvest comes in, everybody's going to want to be involved in this and to improve their product and so forth.
And I do understand your question about somebody taking over the facility. That happens a lot in concert kitchens. It would have to be one of the rules that you can only use this. We want small businesses, and I love today. They would take that, and that's why she's had to go from different concert. It's got bigger and bigger, and that's the whole point. This is a small startup business incubator, and then now you're good to go. You go talk to my friend at the development center, because they will let you take your next step.
And I guess one other point I wanted to make too, because as I say, you get into harvest, would you think about expanding the hours of operation? Because you may have some people want to come in early, other people might want to come in late, just give us some consideration of that as well.
Sure, yeah, all options will be considered. One of the other things that we have to mention, right now, is working with the fire department on our holiday food drive, but we have a walk-in freezer and those kind of capabilities to be able to reduce storage for them. That's always been a little bit of a dilemma, so we would love to be able to get all of that.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes,
Very quickly, you mentioned about Starry Nights and catering. Are you suggesting that there may be restaurants or others that could come in, use the kitchen, and then supply events in the village?
No, my point during that would be for fundraising for this facility.
that's a question that we can address at another time. Okay? This is basically to present what we've done so far, so you have an idea of where the administration is trying to move. We don't have a lot of specifics. We've spent almost a half an hour on this one subject. So if you have any questions that have come up that haven't been addressed or you're still confused about, please write those questions down, forward those to the administration, and we will answer those as we get that information. Realize this is very early in our thought process. Also, Melanie, I have to apologize. I forgot to get a roll call. So quickly, so we have it documented on tape. Counselor Miera,
Here.
Counselor Woolman,
Here.
Counselor Knight,
Here.
Counselor Alsobrook,
Here.
Counselor Burkett.
Here.
Is your wife okay?
She has a broken arm, but no surgery needed.
Good. And Counselor Murray.
I'm here.
Not bad.
All right. So now we're going to move on to Chief Anthony Martinez, who's going to give us an update on the fire suppression line plan. Again, this is very early. Try to focus on big picture questions as opposed to, down into the details. Anthony will cover this very, very meticulously. Any questions you have, please write them down and answer and ask them at the end of his presentation. Fire away, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Counselor. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Test, 1, 2. Test,
Better.
better? Okay. I do apologize. I was trying to find the electronic version of this to send to you. So I'll just kind of put this thinking on me. So as Mayor mentioned, I'm here to give you a quick briefing. Well, fairly quick. I could talk about water lines all day. Kind of where we're at and where we plan on going with our fire suppression system that we have here in the village of Corrales. What I have here, and I do apologize, the lines are kind of hard to see, but this is a plan that we were able to retain when we hired Mr. Grolman to help us with the design and plans for Angel Tower, Angel Hill for the water tank up on top of Angel, which included kind of what we already have in the ground and what we're looking forward as far as future. I'll kind of go into, I have a lot of projects right now kind of just, in the works, and I'm just going to kind of give you a real quick preliminary briefing of what's going on. So the main station pump house, which is equivalent to 120,000 gallons of water at 1,000 gallons per minute. We're planning on trying to extend that water system to the Albuquerque Public Schools, which they already have a contractor retained, and they're in the process of trying to schedule the connection from the Albuquerque Public School system into the Village of Corrales fire suppression line system. What does that do for us? Well, that helps the school because they only have 60,000 gallons of water, which when they put that tank wasn't sufficient enough for the elementary school. It gives APS a redundancy for fires, and also gives the Village of Corrales residents redundancy. So by tying into their water system, which is a non-domestic fire suppression system, gives us a total of about 180,000 gallons of water that we can use whether for the school or for Village of Corrales, which is isolated in the commercial core of the village. The main station system we're also working on, Albuquerque Public Schools has just, we are extending the line from their infrastructure, and today they're installing the first hydrant in the Village of Corrales along Andrews Lane, which hopefully will be operational next week. And so real exciting stuff is happening with the main station and APS public school system. I'm currently working with the Interior Drain Committee and Mr. Mike Chavez from Public Works, and we are working with MRGCD. We're finalizing a license agreement that I hope to be turning over to the mayor and Ron hopefully next week. to kind of show where we want to run our future water line and wastewater line along Andrews easement and on conservancy property. And our goal is to run hydrants or water fire suppression system all the way up Andrews to Valverde and all the way down to the Corrales Bosque. That's our goal. Utilizing the Andrews interior drain and the MRDCD easement, we're able to, install the infrastructure under the license agreement like we have in Loma Larga. And that has been, a huge success because depending on my funding sources, whether it's grants, legislative funding, depending on what I get, I can put that in the ground immediately. We already have the agreement. So if it's $10,000, we could put $10,000 of infrastructure somewhere. If it's $100,000, we'll put $100,000. So it's a real, I use the term, I guess it's a common term, shovel-ready type projects. So we're looking really forward to getting Andrews completed. Loma Larga pump station, 84,000 gallon water tank. Those of you have seen, we have, I've lost count of how many hydrants we have on Loma Larga, but it's up probably over 25 hydrants. We extend all the way from Angel Road, all the way down to Ella. And that license agreement covers all the way to the north end of Corrales and all the way down to Cabazon. So any funding sources there, we're going to try to continue moving that line along. We're at a stopping point at Angel because we want to take that line and we want to go down the main canal and try to provide better fire protection to the commercial or industrial area of Academy, where we have the big warehouses and we have the schools and the church where we have absolutely no fire suppression there. So that's one of our goals. So we kind of stop there at Angel until we come up with a plan, engineering plan, how we're going to go underneath that canal, and of course a funding source. Rec center project, right now it's just kind of standing idle. The rec center is designed. It's a tank that was given to us by Intel. It's about 38,000 gallons of water, so the capacity of the tank isn't very large, but our well produces that fills up that tank is like almost 400 gallons a minute. That tank serves as fire protection for the rec center. We are actually going to be tying in the sprinkler system in the new gym in addition off of that system, so the infrastructure is already there. But it is designed to go north and south along Corrales Road. But right now we don't have any funding to extend that. In Angel Hill, we have a design and a plan for construction of Angel Hill. We'd like to take it to the next level now to design the infrastructure that we're going to put in the ground as far as size of piping and make the connection to the Loma Larga system. So that's what we're hoping to move forward with the funding that we received. Thank you for supporting that so we can do a design. And the design is going to encompass everything that we want in the route. So what we've already put in the ground, what we have planned, and what we have planned in the future. So I'm real excited about getting that started. Let's see. I think that's about it. Funding sources right now, I have $275,000 of legislative funding that I'll be allocating to finish up some of these projects. We're waiting to hear on a fire protection grant fund through the State Fire Marshal's office to see if we got accepted for our grant to extend our water lines. And of course, coordinating with APS and trying to finish up that project. So I hope that kind of sums things up. I have a lot of things in the works, but I'll stand for questions.
Mayor, this is Councilor Murray.
Yes, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Martinez. I think in our discussions, I think one of the end goals of this is to interconnect all the tanks. So they all form essentially a system that allows you much greater capacity of water. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I kind of anticipated that question. So yeah, with APS and the main station, making that connection would give us 180,000. But if we make the connection to Loma Larga, we're looking at 264,000 gallons of water by not having a dead-end line system that we can feed from multiple directions, which gives us redundancies. And all the pumps are designed for the same flows and pressures, so they're not going to be fighting each other. One's going to be more of a, when we have a drop in the line pressure, one will kick on and probably maintain it. But if we start exceeding that flow, other pumps will kick in. So yes, that's one of our goals.
And what do you think will do to the improved response times then if there's a house up on the West Mesa and so forth?
I'm sorry, what was the first question?
Well, I mean, what does that do to your response times if you have that water availability at Loma Larga versus having to go to the village center to get it? I mean, how does that improve your response to an incident up on the West Mesa?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, yes, so that improves our response time. So if you recall, back when I first started this project back in like 2005, talking about needed tanks in different locations of the village of Corrales. Our tanker trucks have to go from the fire to the nearest water source, and then we calculate that via, water on wheels. And then we turn that into how many gallons we could deliver a minute on each truck. So by putting fire hydrants at closer crossroads or different intersections, it shortens our travel distance of our fire trucks. So there are areas that, yes, we're gonna have enough hose to get to your house if there's a fire or a commercial business, or our tanker truck has to travel less to go fill up and then go to the fire. So we are increasing our gallons per minute, and we're getting better response times.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, excuse me, I didn't see you.
That's right. Thank you, Chief, for
Yeah.
the presentation. I just have a quick question, and this kind of ties into the next bullet point as well. But when we are digging trenches for these water suppression lines, is there any way we could put piping in for the wastewater lines at the same time? It seems silly that a lot of the same paths are going to be used for both to come and dig a trench 2 separate times. And obviously, I don't want to slow your progress down, and I think you have a significant head start. But I would also love to see every time we dig a trench that we're putting everything in that trench that we possibly think we need the next 20 to 25 years. So we're not just redigging up something before the ground is settled. Thoughts on, would that slow you down? And is there a way we can, will the trench you dig currently hold more stuff in it? All of those things.
Mayor, councilors, I agree with you 100%. And I think it's silly to dig a hole and then bury it and then have to come back another 5 years or 10 years to dig another hole, or you have concrete or pavement. I'm working with Mr. Chavez. For example, the interior drain, the license agreement for the MRGCD is going to be of adequate size to accommodate a wastewater and water line. And we're going to the extent that my water line right now, even though it's non-potable, there's different rules as far as separation from a wastewater line, but I'm trying to follow the drinking water standard. So if down the road, if the infrastructure that's in the ground that's only non-potable ever has to be turned into potable, you don't have to go and dig it back up and move it. It's already done. So we are trying to do that. We're trying to save taxpayers money. We're trying to find one trench, one pathway. However, and Mike could probably speak on this in more detail, we are like the last utility to really go in. And so we're fighting, that's why I'm trying to utilize MRDCD, SCAFCA, any other quasi-government access for to lay the lines, because we have a lot of private property issues. And so without buying property, I'm trying to find the path of least resistance that will accommodate both departments, which is challenging, but we are working on it.
Okay. Yeah. I think whatever path you find is the same path we would have to find for sewer. And I would love to have some sort of policy within the village to where if we're digging a trench, we're not doing it unless we're putting multiple things in it, but I don't want to slow you down. So that would be my biggest concern, is if the sewer is 5, 10, 15 years behind, can we at least get support from the citizens to bury pipes without hooking them up to anything in hopes that we have a sewer at some point, or is that going to have resistance to keep us from doing it?
The old church project, where I want to connect the Loma Larga line to the main station water line, we are actually doing that. Mike and I, we're going to have enough easement to put the water and wastewater. The wastewater is going to be going to nowhere right now, but he's going to put it in for future.
Yes,
so
perfect.
we are planning on it. Yep. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Anthony, thank you very much. So counselors, if you come up with a question, please send it up to the administration and we'll try to get you an answer. If you want copies of diagrams, you're going to have to twist Anthony's arm because that's very difficult to get. Okay. Mr. Chavez, are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, fire away.
Okay, Mayor, councilors. So I tried to get all my napkins together and put it all together so we can actually understand it.
And that's literal.
That is literal. So let me run over number one. I think everybody has a list of and a map also so they can follow me. So the professional engineers report, that's a very large document. It covers what we can do, gives us what we should do, areas we can take care of, where we can go with this line, how many people will be served. It's a very intricate document. So I'm just gonna kind of skip over it, and this is already in the works, but this will help us along with getting our RFP for design. It's kind of the cornerstone of our wastewater system that we want to come up with. Our number two I have on here, and if you go to the map, that's in green. That's our existing step system. And we're going to leave this in there. We're going to do some modifications only to replace some of the valves that are on there. The installation that was done with PVC, and we need to replace those. Those aren't made to be operated, which we're ending up having to do. And right now, me and my guys are having to get into these manholes to operate these valves. We've come up with a design where we don't have to get in them and we can actually monitor the system. We just need to get that put into works. Number three will be dark blue. That's our pre-seed Corval. We already have a design on that. We kind of put it on hold because of the interior drain, because we're going to have to integrate it with that system so it can all work together. And that way it doesn't just stand on its own. So we're going to put some T's and valve that together. Number four, East Ella, Dixon, East La Entrada. We're going to leave those all as a step system. We're not going to change that side. The east side of Corrales Road, we're going to leave as a step system. We still have like 40 some pumps that we can give out. And what we'll do there, the plan is we will run the main lines. We'll do directional boring because it's HDPE. We're not going to run any services until the customer asks for one. We have all the equipment on hand here at the shop to tap these lines and connect. So if someone decides they want to hook up, then we can go in there. We will probably connect the line, but let the contractor hook up their system from RT. As you can see, the yellow is the interior drain, which will be left on the step system. We're going to need to, and this will also be part of our PER. We'll cover all this of what we can do, but we want to leave everything there as that. Red would be part of our phase one of our new system. And we're going to run a gravity system. And what it'll do is it'll pick up our step system, our existing at Old Church. And we will carry that as a gravity all the way to La Entrada. La Entrada, we will have to use a lift pump to carry it up to the gravity system that'll run along Loma Larga. Black is our high density areas, and those were called out during the design for the step system. What we're going to do is we're going to go grinder pumps. These will all be connected to the step system, but we will have two valves and a check valve. So this will create a bypass for our step system to go up to our new one. And where this came along is I hated to just come in here and try to do a bypass on its own. I don't want something standalone. We can service all the residents like this. So the grinder pumps in the black area will carry it to the gravity. It will then again have to be lifted up to Loma Larga, but at least we'll be able to service our residents. The white one is our proposed phase 2. And with that one, we can go all the way up to our lime green, which would be the northwest sector. Now, these are all going to be, this will all have to probably be on lift pumps because of the grade changes. But that'll also, going back to our PER, they will recommend on what we can do there. But with this system, when we go to design, we're going to make sure it's large enough that it'll carry everything, and it'll have to be everything in Corrales. Even if we have to close off this step system for some reason, it's going to have to be large enough that we can send it up along the new system and down that, which would include every resident in Corrales, everything above Loma Larga. And for future, we would probably have to design the white phase 2 also to carry that. I don't want to miss anything on this design. That's why we're starting with the PER. So we're not going in later and having to adjust or say, oh, we should have done that. We're trying to make sure everything's covered on this. That's like with Anthony, I'm working with him. Now, I'll go back to Anthony. So for his water system to meet NMED standards for a drinking water line, we have to have a 10-foot distance between them. His lines will have to be, the majority of them will have to be excavated and installed. Our sewer line, as far as the gravity, that'll have to be an open excavation. Everything you see in the dark blue, the yellow, the light blue, and the black, that can all be directional drilling. As far as teeing off of phase 1 and phase 2 to go to the west, those can all be grinder pumps. That can also be directional drilling. So we can actually have the residents on grinder pumps pumping to our line, which will be a smaller size pipe. So the only gravity that we're really looking at is phase 1 and phase 2. And that pretty much sums up where I'm at on this.
Any questions? I have one. So we're not going to use gravity flow from the west side of Corrales, west of Loma Larga, from the residences down to the gravity flow that hits Loma Larga?
We don't have to.
Okay,
We can, and that's kind of what the PER will let us know.
I see.
But as far as open trenching along a lot of these areas, it'd be kind of hard to do that just because of the width, but we can use grinder pumps and that would get rid of the tanks.
Yes,
And-
okay.
but
That
I-
answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes,
So the professional engineers report, how long ago was that done? The only one I'm really intimately familiar with was the one that was the precursor to the existing step system down Corrales Road. Is this from a more recent one or is this from that?
Well, this is something we're in the process of getting right now.
Okay.
Steve Groman's actually working on that right now.
Because that actually is part of my broader question of, this is quite a wholesale change in trying to deal with the waste away from the 1 acre minimums for septics. This is a huge shift in approaches. And I'm wondering, I guess my first question would be, what's the motivation for that? Where does the desire for that come from?
This pretty much started with the step system and having to deal with the problems. So instead of just trying to figure a bypass, I want to just go ahead and bring sewer to the village. And I can tell you right now, the one thing that I'm totally against on the step system was the septic tanks. Before I came here, I had my own business and part of it was pumping tanks. And the one thing I've noticed, and I think of probably about 50% of the tanks that I pumped out are leaking. So these tanks that we have in here, I know they're all leaking, and where's it going? It's going to our groundwater.
Okay.
So John,
Yeah.
I think we're not dealing with land use here. We're dealing with trying to keep our water safe and clean.
Yes.
I understand your point about the land use, about the acre. That's not our approach at all. Our approach here is to try to keep our water clean, which is what we discussed, I guess it was 14 years ago.
Yep.
We need to protect our water because I mean, we don't want to put in a water system. I mean, it's going to be the same expense. So we would rather, and Michael and I have discussed this to some degree, we would rather protect the water. Now it's going to be very piecemeal. So it's not like a wholesale, all of a sudden, we're going to go to small lots and real increased density. That may ultimately happen 30, 50, 100 years from now. We don't know that. But we know that in the last 14, 15 years, more and more people are having difficulty with maintaining their leach fields, maintaining their septic tanks. We have more people moving to the village and building. We have more contamination going into the soil from leach fields. And as Ron will tell you, when he was at the EPA over in Dallas, it was known that septic tanks and leach fields were the primary cause of groundwater contamination. And Ron could even speak to that if he wants to.
Well, Mayor, one of the things that became quite apparent for a number of years is that the septic tanks problems in New Mexico and the Bernalillo County area, people often think of septic tanks being problems only in rural areas of the state. The South Valley is now come up with a sewer system that has helped do that. And Michael Sanchez, who used to run the part of the water authority, has removed over 500 septic tanks from the South Valley, which continues to help the water pollution down there. But closer to home, one of the things that we would talk about when I was at the Environment Department with James Jimenez, who used to be city manager at Rio Rancho. At one time, and I'm talking about in the 2010 area, 35 to 38% of Rio Rancho was on septic systems. And that's the largest septic tank pollution, is the largest form of groundwater pollution in the state of New Mexico. More so than what you see at Los Alamos or used to be at Sandia or even the dairies. Septic tanks are the biggest source of groundwater pollution in the state, and it still remains that way today. So the big push for this is trying to protect the groundwater and the drinking water here in Corrales. And that's the motivation that I know that Anthony thinks about and Michael thinks about and the mayor thinks about too, is it protecting the groundwater that we have here, especially as we go through this drought. The groundwater quality becomes even more important. And so it's more important to try to find ways to protect it.
Just to follow up, Mayor, I think it's quite a comprehensive plan. Certainly it's going to be, the rollout will be restricted by finances and what's available. That may make it possible to stay ahead of village opinion, because the 50% of the people whose systems are all working fine are going to be pushing back hard on plans like this. And so just the amount of time it takes to roll out all of this in a piecemeal fashion may allow us to, whether it's public education or whatever it takes, to get more of the villagers on board with this type of plan. Because, one of the initial things that in that initial PER report long ago, Coronado got lumped in with Ranchitos. Coronado has a large portion of the homes are 2 acre plus on lots, whereas Ranchitos is the one that has substandard lots that are all 2/3 acre and less. And so that was an issue that came up at the time, just from my neighbors, and extending that over the rest of the village. I think we're going to have a large PR problem to deal with. Like, as you said, it's going to take 20, 30, however many years, and it's not going to be any of our problems to deal with it on the ground in a tactical sense, but it's for us to plan now.
Well, to get the funding, excuse me, Mel, let me just say this. To get the funding, we have to have a professional engineer's report that takes care of the whole village, defines the whole village and plans for the whole village. And then we can phase what we want to do. As Michael has said, we get a line in, that doesn't mean we have to hook in right away. It means we have it available as we need to hook into it. As you recall, we had a big issue with mandates before, and we did mandate. The village council did mandate hookups at certain times. It just didn't fit Richard Rose's definition of mandates. That's all. So we're going to approach this several ways. We have a couple of $1 million now to do the design and get this PER done and make a plan. It is expensive, and we'll probably have to do it piecemeal over several years. Okay, Mel, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, during the debates for our own village councilors, this came up a lot. And one of the things that I stressed is that, you know, when you only have one line going down Corrales Road, sooner or later, there's going to be an issue, and what happens? So this addresses that more thoughtfully, I think, because as Michael said, he's not just putting in like backups, it's a whole total plan. So, you know, I think that most villagers are aware of it. They're, at this point, they're not going to be mandated, it doesn't sound like, to do it, but if you want to, you know, think about your septic systems and clean water, I think this is the way to go, so.
Yes, sir. Councilor Burkett.
Just two quick thoughts. One is, looking at this map, I mean, basically, there's no system in my district, which I understand it's furthest from where we're taking things. But I would certainly think it's worth exploring going further down Corrales Road when we do look at this. And then my second question is feasibility of running along the Bosque. If that, for both fire suppression and for wastewater, it would seem beneficial to have fire hydrants down near the Bosque for wildfire prevention or fighting. And also, it seems like it could shorten some of these runs if we could run a wastewater line down there as well. And there's certainly a lot of dirt to dig into down there that you're going to be dodging less houses.
Thank you.
So.
Yes, sir, Stuart.
Well, I'll let Mike, I think Mike was going to respond.
Counselor, so right there at Old Church Road, there is a valve and a cap on that wastewater line along Corrales Road for expansion. So that can be extended. But right now we were concentrating on trying to get the step system with something we could use as a bypass, plus incorporate a new system into it.
Yeah, to follow up on Councilor Burkett's comment, you might want to think of that as phase 4 or something, as a future expansion as well. My other concern too is that even with the lines that we have run, we've got two issues we have to think about is how do you get a resident to hook up and how much it's going to cost them? And then the other one would be, I think any new development coming in should be using advanced treatment systems, which would help reduce the pollution into the groundwater, because our old system, like mine, has been there for 30-some years. If I put in a advanced treatment system, I would probably improve the groundwater going in from it. But I think, judging by the looks of the map, 60% of the village is not going to be able to hook up to this system unless we provide for that.
So by running the mains, and like I said before, whether it be a grinder pump or the step system, if the main is already in there, all they would have to do is pay the connection fee. We have the equipment, we can either do a tapping saddle on it or cut in a saddle. We have the electrofusion welder, we also have the tapping tees. So the way I'm looking at it is if your existing conventional system decides to take a dump,
It's supposed to be money, right?
you're probably talking around $8,000. And I'm pretty sure we can get a new grinder pump system in for way under that, probably about 5.
But Michael, when people start having access to hookups, we have to make them aware of what their costs will be and what their level of responsibility will be. I mean, that goes with the territory.
Yeah,
That's automatic. That addresses one of Councilor Murray's concerns. And as we move forward, we'll have more information from the PER report, from the
Yeah.
PER.
and I've spoke to a lot of the residents and a lot of them are waiting. And their questions to me, some of them were, how long before you think we can get this? Because our system isn't gonna last and they want to connect. Some of them for financial reasons, some of them are thinking of the groundwater.
Okay.
Let me ask one other question. Does this mean that we might consider spatial assessment districts?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say it again.
Okay. Let me take my mask off. Maybe it'll be a little clearer. Does that mean that the village might consider spatial assessment districts for funding?
Well, it could certainly be considered. It wasn't anything that was considered initially. Okay, any other questions? If you have them, remember, write them down, send them to the administration, and we'll try to answer them. Okay, thank you very much, Michael. That was good. And now the star of the show with the Animal Services Building, our village counselor, our village clerk, excuse me, Melanie Romero.
All right, thank you, Mayor, council members. I don't have much of an update since our last meeting last Tuesday. Where things stand currently. Picture here. I have a very, very rough sketch that I did in my Microsoft Word. Share it so people at home can enjoy this. See, I can't multitask with so many things at once. Okay, so this was done, as I said, on Microsoft Word. So the little boxes around each of the text boxes will not actually be little boxes in the facility. But so basically there will be the main entrance there in the center, at the bottom where it says door, and that will take people into sort of an, we've dubbed it an office area for lack of a better term. Animal Services will still keep their current office where it's at there next to planning and zoning. And the two current kennel rooms will be turned into storage. So this office will have, we've asked for the custom sketch that comes from Horizon Structures to include a wash tub and a washer and dryer hookup in this area. Currently, the Animal Services officers either have to take home the laundry to their homes for any bedding for the animals that needs to be washed, or they take it down to the Jones house. And as I think most of us know, we have plans in the works to tear down the Jones house and put up some other wonderful facility there. So while that's being done, I do believe Lynn from Public Works has said that that washer and dryer can be moved into the pump house at the rec center, so that washer and dryer will still be available, but still they do have to take stuff, in their vehicles and drive it around. So it would be nice for them to have something right there where they can wash the toys, they can wash all of the bedding. And there on the right-hand side of the building will be the dog run area. So the four rectangles at the bottom, those will be the outdoor runs. Those will be covered, and then they'll be screened in on the front with fencing. And I do believe each one of those runs will have its own gate, so that Animal Services officers could get in or out of that area if need be. And then each one of those outdoor runs will have a pet safe door that lead into the interior boxes. And there will be a guillotine door, which sounds terrible. I don't know why they couldn't come up with another name for those doors, but it will have a latch inside where they can close the door and either have the animals outside so they can clean the interior, or inside so they can clean the exterior. And that way they don't have to remove the animal from their individual kennel, which reduces overall stress for the animal. The interior boxes will have a drain that runs along the entire length of that area. So it runs right there on the wall that separates the inside and the outside. And that way they, and the floor will be sloped. That was a tip we got from Sandoval County. They have one of these buildings and they did not pay the extra money to slope the floor. And so the water does not drain into those wonderful drains that they pay for. So the floor will be sloped towards those drains. So they can just hose out the area if they need to clean it.
Her design.
And then there will be a 3-foot feed aisle inside for the, that's where animal services staff will be able to access each one of the individual pens. And then on the left-hand side, that will be the area for felines. Here we have an open area that overall is 8 feet by 12 feet. There will be an area for 2 sort of indoor kennels for felines that might be pregnant or sick. And the staff at Horizon Structures is going to kind of design that for us. And their drawing will be much nicer. And then there's a covered porch. So much like the dog run, the cats will have access to being inside or outside as they choose, with us with another pet safe door, also with a guillotine door. So if we need to shut that for some reason, we can do that to keep the cats from going out onto the porch. So basically where we're at with this is I sent off my drawing. They need a deposit of $2,000 to go ahead and do the custom design drawings. And Cindy is actually processing that check this week. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that sent off by the end of this week. As soon as they get the money, then they will produce the drawings. And then when I have those drawings, I can give that to Facility Build and they can lay out our design for the cement slab that will go underneath the building. Hopefully all of that will be done before December 14th, at which point we will take this before planning and zoning to get approval for both this and our parking lot remodel. And then once I have P&Z approval and estimates from both the kennel structure and the Facility Build for the slab, we'll be able to go to Dennis Friends. And they've already given us a verbal commitment of around 120,000 up to maybe 150,000. They've also said if we need more, we can definitely talk about that. Right now, the initial quote I have from Horizon for this building is just over $91,000. And that includes everything shipping, for them to set it up. And that is pretty much where everything stands at the moment. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mayor, thank you, and councilors. Again, this gets back to the fire egress. Is there a back way out of this place that allows anybody to,
So
is the front doors blocked?
there should be a gate or a little fence, I guess gate isn't really the proper word, over on the enclosed porch for access out on that side, so that, you know, if one of the animal services officers is out there in the enclosed porch, they're not just trapped out there. So there will be an exit off the enclosed porch out. I actually talked to Tanya from our fire department. She took a look at this and she mentioned that too, that there might need to be another exit. But she thought that maybe with the exit there at the office and an exit out on the side, that might be enough.
Okay, I was just thinking of maybe a pop-out window or something.
Yeah, there are windows in every single area, so that would be a point where it would be big enough for them to jump out the window if need be.
Yes,
Mayor,
Councilwoman.
Mayor, Melanie, a couple questions. You mentioned that the existing concrete runs will be used for storage. Would it be possible to save some space in the center where you're going to put the washer and dryer and put washer and dryer in those runs?
I was going to
stackable.
Yeah, I was going to look at what it would cost to run a drain and everything from there and see which would be the better option.
And the other thing is, it seems awfully large, almost, I guess, a quarter of the space for an office. Would it be possible to reduce that and expand the cat area. This seems 8 by 12 is relatively small for what you're trying to fit in there. Would that be possible?
We can definitely look at it when we get the overall drawings and kind of see exactly what needs to be in there and what doesn't.
How large do you think it should be, Councilwoman?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you make this instead of 12 by 12, make it 8 by 12, and pick up 4 feet to expand.
No, I mean for the cats.
Yeah, to expand the cat area, because you're going to have, potentially, you're going to have some of the what we call condos that are currently in the, or is now in here. Then you're going to need litter boxes. You're going to need a number of different things in here. Plus, you want to have somewhere in here a sink for washing hands. If they're for whatever, there's
Yeah, that's what we
injured
were gonna
animal
have it
or
out in the
disease.
office area, but
in the office, in the office area. But I think you might be able to shrink that office space, particularly if you're not going to be using it for an office. If it's really a meet and greet, and maybe you mentioned a dog wash perhaps in there. So just
yeah.
so
no,
this
and-
is at this point, what you're doing is presenting an overall plan, which is flexible.
Yes.
Not
yeah,
locked-
yeah,
not
this-
locked in
we're
at any
not locked into anything with this. This, obviously, like I said, this was just my kind of drawing to send off to Horizon Structures to ask them, can you do something like this?
Right.
They have a whole catalog full of wonderful, amazing prefab structures, but nothing was exactly,
For cats.
for cats.
Yeah.
So, this was just something.
Now,
to
what you're
send
doing
off.
is trying to get an overall structure for the December 14th meeting. So between now and then, or even a little bit after that, you can still make some modifications
Oh,
to
yeah.
the interior part.
Yeah, we can make changes up until the date we order it. So, and then there's, and I forgot to bring my piece of paper that had all of the quotes, but I think you have to do a 35% down at the time you order, and then 55% is due before delivery, and then the remainder is due at delivery. So yeah, we can make changes to the plan up until we actually order it. And it was my thought before I actually do the ordering is to get as much input on the design. Certainly have Kat and Bria take a look at it and see if they think this would be functional for them. So I think Kat had the best reaction when she saw this. I think she kind of did a little bit of a squeal. And she was very excited and said, "That's amazing." So I think, like I said, it's a very rough drawing, and I'm very excited to see what they actually send over to us.
And then one last quick question. In addition to this, there will be an outside area for dogs to run as well with some covered area.
There will still be the three, I think it's 3 pens that they have over there now. And part of my overall request to the dentist friends is to see if we can get an outdoor covering for those runs, because currently they're just open.
Right.
And I think they've tried to put some tarps and stuff like that.
Doesn't work.
But if we could get a covering for that as well, and they can use it for goats, they can use it for ducks, they can use it for dogs if we have more than the 4. So there would be, some carryover there.
I know Chief Martinez would love to have goats in residence for to clear out the bosque, so. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Burkett.
So just to ask a question that I've asked before, I'm looking at a June 21st presentation that we did to the village citizens about our layout of the parking lot with parklets and sculptures and pathways. And then it looks like we overlaid a rectangle over all of that to what's going to be the new Animal Services Center, which for all intents and purposes is going to be a modular structure that's parked amongst this kind of beautification project we've been working on for years, and it looks like we're continuing to work on. I very much like the idea of the animal services thing. I'm still having a very difficult time with putting it there, particularly when the aesthetics of it are going to be a big rectangle. It's not going to blend with any of the other stuff that it looks like we're doing, and it looks like that we've presented to our citizens that we plan on doing. So I would love to explore other locations for this. I realize that's a difficult thing to do. I realize we're far along in this process. But I continue to say, I think we're going to regret putting it here, and I think we're going to regret it pretty quickly, and we're going to cost the taxpayers more money when we move it.
Yes, Counselor Knight.
You know, I agree with Counselor Burkett. There's plenty of spaces around the village. I don't know why it has to be right next to where the commercial kitchen is supposedly gonna go. And this beautification process, it's gonna be by the parking lot. And again, I agree with him. There's other spots, but I know it's been discussed many times about where they could put it. But, yeah, I don't think that's the most advantageous spot either.
John.
Just to echo those comments, and maybe Mr. Young can help us if we go back to that. But yeah, that was my question, is if we cite this next to the future commissary, are there any, is that going to be objectionable to anyone who might be using it?
That's difficult to predict.
I know the regulations, you can't have animals in our food processing, so that there's other regulations to
Mayor,
Okay.
this is Councilor Murray. So one of the other things that in P and Z is that the outside structure has to conform with the village ordinances, and some of that is it has to be similar in style to what we already have. So if we have a stucco building right next to it, it probably would have to be stuccoed to begin with, so it would probably make it an improvement. I have seen modular buildings done like that, where they come in and then they stucco the outside to make it look like it's similar to the other facilities around. So there's no reason why we couldn't do something similar to that too, and probably make it look reasonable within the village facilities.
Okay, any further comments or questions? So Counselor Woolman, I guess you're up now. You wanted to make a statement about
Yes,
Salsa Park?
thank you, Mayor and councilors. I'd like to ask this about the status of the research on Salsa Park. On June 27th, Public Works, Parks and Rec, the Parks and Rec Commission, the administration, and 4 village councilors met at the site to consider the future of Salsa Park. At that time, a commitment was made to determine the legal status on how the site can be used. In the past 4 months, I've asked several times without success for an update. Over the past 2 decades, the village has paid millions to private landowners to preserve open space from development. As I understand it, Salsa Park was donated to the village to preserve open space and create a park. Now that area has been leveled, it is just an area growing weeds. The village has one park, the La Entrada Park at the library. Sagebrush Drive is about to be repaved and connect with a recently completed bike path. And yet the 2.5 acres of Salsa Park is left untouched and growing weeds. It'll be a true opportunity lost if this open space is left as it is, or allow for a developer to put in 2 more houses. Instead, at minimal cost, a low-impact neighborhood park, one the community can be proud of, can be constructed on the site. So in conclusion, I hope that we can move forward to resolve this impasse sometime in the near future. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Looks like the mayor had to step away from his.
While the mayor's off screen, can I just add some comments? So I was on Parks and Rec, and for an extended period of time, we've looked at a variety of options, from a veterans park to a walkway to a dog park. And the question that you're asking for the answer to has been the holdup on all of those, is we do not know specifically what legally we can do with that property. And it's a question that there's an answer to, and we have to find the answer, because I agree with you 100%. I mean, we are not taking care of village resources if we're just letting that grow weeds.
Yeah, and this was the reason for the meeting on the 27th of June, and we still don't have an answer. So I don't think it's difficult to find, but somebody's got to just, put their mind to it and try to do it.
Okay, next project. So if there are any other questions, any other comments? All right, the agenda has been completed. So we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much for your participation. I anticipate a number of questions coming in, and the administration will certainly do all we can to answer all those questions and start a new project with Salsa Park, perhaps.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for doing this.